I have a dream, oh, I have a dream. Red, white, and blue, fly free, fly free. I believe, oh, I believe. Will you dream with me?
Good morning, everyone out there. Welcome to Changing Times. It is Wednesday, November the 2nd, 2022. We are live at Axe Media Group in Springfield, Missouri. And we just got a great show lined up today. And I am Lynn Morris.
And I'm Don Blackard.
Yes, you are. I tell you what, glad to be here today. We have a special guest, and he's a friend of ours. He's been on our show before. I've served with him at the State House. Curtis Trent, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Great to be here.
Well, I tell you what, so you and I served as a state representative. You still are. I'm termed out. And then now you're going to be a new state senator.
Yeah, that's right. I ran for the 20th district. It was a tough primary, but unopposed in the general, which I think is a good sign that we're going to make it.
Yeah, I'm unopposed too, and
Yeah.
and as presiding commissioner down in Christian County, and so in fact, it's the first time out of all my races since 2012 that I've ever been unopposed in a general election. So usually had an opponent, and so I was
Yeah.
getting kind of nervous as I've been watching people come to the courthouse to do early voting. I'm hoping they're going to be voting for me, and they're not putting somebody's write-in name in.
You have to see what the undervote is at least.
Yeah. And so that'll be interesting. But no, so today we're going to do something different. I'm really glad we've got people from all over the country today watching and around the world, and we're going to be doing two things on our show that we normally don't do. Don and I don't usually talk politics, and we always want to stay positive with positive solutions. That's what our show is about: social issues, social causes, and trying to stay positive and coming up with solutions, because a lot of people want to complain, but they don't have solutions, and certainly positive solutions. And so today we're going to be talking about voting. The first half, we're going to be talking about voting in Missouri. So sorry for the rest of the states, but however, stay tuned, because quickly then we're going to go into just principles about voting and talk about why we vote, the importance of voting, and how we vote, and different things. And so I think you're going to want to do this. Curtis Trent is definitely an expert on a lot of this stuff. And so we're going to kind of lead into him and let him tell us. But the first thing that I know something, guys, I've got to do this. So Don, last night, Jan and I were fortunate enough to be invited to a fundraising dinner, very special dinner for Light the Way. And so John and Beth Wilson, they were doing this great show and great dinner. We had a great entertainer, a Christian entertainer last night, and John Werner, it was just some great people. Well, I wanted to do a shout out to Stephanie. Stephanie sat at our table, and she's part of the Parham family. So we're going to be talking about the Parham family later on in sponsorship. But just a great event last night. And Mark and Amy Aker, which Amy is a Parham too, they are lending the property, the Faith Farm down in Christian County, for the 2023 Light the Way concert.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, Church Without Walls. And so it was so many great testimonials last night, great dinner, just a great fellowship last night.
And Sarah Forhetz has joined their board, which is really
she's
great
on the
news.
board, and she actually gave the keynote speaking engagement last night. She is just absolutely, she's just great. I don't even know how to explain how she was on fire last night.
Anointed.
Talking. Yeah, she really is. And so we'll be getting old John Wilson back on this show, because he's also not just going to be doing a concert in Ozark, Missouri, Christian County, but he's going to be doing a concert in 10 different cities next summer. I mean, he's going to places in our country that needs this. And he's got an idea for the future generation by taking the children, the young adults, the teenagers, and getting those people into these type of concerts. And so it's just going to be absolutely awesome. But anyway, so I promised Stephanie, so I didn't forget. So I know she's tuning in. I know that a lot of the Parms are tuning in. I know a lot of people are tuning in, and we really appreciate that. So let's talk about voting. We've got an election 6 days away. It's one of the most important elections ever. I think every time that we have an election, everyone says it's the most important election. And you know what? Every time it may lead up to the most important election that we've ever had in our country. Our country is extremely divided. We've got friends on both sides of almost every issue. And somehow we have got to be Americans first and then support your party second. I'm telling you what, that's why I believe I'm just an old-fashioned old guy, and I may have different feelings than some of the people, but somehow we've got to make sure our country prospers and our people prosper. But so, Curtis, we've got several amendments on the ballot in Missouri. So Amendment 4 is the first one. What do you want to say about Amendment 4?
Well, let's see. I've got them out of order here.
Okay.
So Amendment 4, that is going to be the one that has the minimum funding for police force established by a state board of police commissioners, which am I
Yeah, you're good.
off-center
Yeah,
here?
yeah,
Okay.
you're good now.
Which in this context basically means Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, we've had a lot of political turmoil around the country wanting to defund the police. There was some talk of that in Kansas City as well. And because of their unique situation where they have this they have this board of police commissioners, you have to have a constitutional amendment in order to affect that, in order to change that policy. So that's what this would do. It would establish a minimum amount of policing for the city of Kansas City. You know, I think that's very important that we have a strong police force. That's kind of the first responsibility of government, is to protect the rights and liberties of the people, to, you know, prevent crime, prevent violence against fellow citizens. And so that is why that was put on the ballot by the state legislature.
So
this
that's
time
a
around.
yes vote, unless you like riots and burning down buildings. And
if you want to defund the police, then you don't want to vote for this. But assuming you don't want to defund the police, this is a good one to vote for.
Well, let's go back, because I confused myself too. I think that's why I confused you. Amendment 2 is the first actually amendment on the ballot. So what do you got for Amendment 2?
Well, when you say Amendment 2, are you you mean Amendment 5?
Oh, Amendment 5. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the National Guard Amendment, that is more of a housekeeping amendment. Missouri is one of only a handful of states that does not have a independent National Guard department at the department level in the governor's cabinet. Ours is nestled under another public safety agency. So all this would do is it would break it out, make it its own agency, raise a little bit of awareness about the National Guard and its issues in the state, and kind of conform our structure to other National Guards around the country. So it won't have a huge impact on the day-to-day operation of the Guard or anything like that. But I think it would be good to have the issues regarding the Guard raised to a different level, and have that be a cabinet level department in the state of Missouri.
And I think there's no additional cost.
No,
probably. I think
I
think it's pretty neutral on cost.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, people said that it may expedite getting the National Guard out.
Yeah, because the National Guard will report directly to the governor instead of to a department head that then reports to the governor. So it makes it more direct flow of a chain of command there. And the governor is the commander in chief of the National Guard. He's the top executive in the state, and so that kind of makes sense.
Sure. How about Amendment 1?
Amendment 1 is another kind of a housekeeping amendment. So, you know, Missouri has, like any other state, it has a lot of pass-through money that goes through the state treasury. You know, taxes are collected, and then the treasurer pays out the obligations of the state, but that does not all happen immediately. So there is money that's always in the treasurer's office as it flows through the state's budget. And the treasurer invests that money to get a rate of return on it. And right now there are constraints on what that money can be invested in. This would give the General Assembly more flexibility to change the type of instruments that the money can be invested in, and hopefully get a higher rate of return for the taxpayer, and allow that money to be put to use for our local communities. So one of the instruments that the treasurer cannot currently invest in is local municipal bonds. So when you, as a commissioner, have a debt instrument for Christian County, right now the treasurer couldn't buy that instrument and invest in Christian County and lower your cost of borrowing money. And so it only makes sense for the state of Missouri to reduce, to be able to invest in and reduce the cost of borrowing for its local municipalities.
Well, I tell you what, this will actually enable the state to earn more money, to make more money.
Right.
It gives them an opportunity to make more money.
Because those are extremely safe investments, and that's what this will be geared to, is investments that are extremely safe. We're not, don't want to lose any money for the taxpayer, so you only want to have those instruments that are going to have guaranteed returns, like a local municipal tax bond, which is incredibly safe. Yeah.
Was that created mostly by Scott Fitzpatrick's idea?
He has been a proponent of it. I don't know if it originated with him, but he's certainly been a big proponent of it. Yes.
He's a good friend of ours. Mm-hmm. He's the treasurer now for the state of Missouri and running for Secretary of State.
Auditor.
Oh, yeah, auditor. I'm sorry, auditor. So that's absolutely awesome. I think he's favored to win that, and hopefully he started out as a state rep with you and me, and has moved on up. And so really proud of Scott Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, big financial background. He was the chair of the budget committee in the House for a while. And so, I mean, this is right up his alley.
Right. Very good. Okay. Well, now we've got the amendment that everybody's going to weigh in on. That's marijuana. So legalization of marijuana.
Yeah. And so this amendment is an interesting one, if for no other reason than it's kind of created it seems to be creating a weird coalition of people who are for marijuana and against marijuana, but they don't like this amendment. So, part of the amendment is, of course, legalizing the recreational use of marijuana. And there's also expungement provisions in there for people who have passed marijuana related charges. Now there are still licensing requirements to be able to grow and sell and all that kind of thing that is maintained, which sort of syncs up with the existing state medical marijuana policy. But there's also equity officer is a piece of this. You'd have someone that would oversee the distribution of licenses and make sure that those are going out in a way that sort of is like the diversity, equity, inclusion type of movement that we've seen around the country, and in how these licenses are distributed. And that has created some heartburn for some folks as well. And so because that would be in the state constitution, and some people are worried that would be the proverbial camel nose under the tent to bring in a whole raft of other DEI type, or DIE as I like to call it, type policies into the state law, state statute. So it's, like I said, it's a strange coalition that has developed against this amendment, and a lot of people have real concerns about how it would be implemented, even if they are in favor of more marijuana access in the state. And of course, if you're against more marijuana access in the state, then it's an easy call.
Well, one of the things, Curtis, I've noticed on TV is. And most of this money, we need to tell people, have come from outside the state of Missouri.
Sure, there's a lot of financial interests that are invested in. That's the licensing provision. That's the kind of artificial gatekeeper on the ability to sell and produce. And so financial interests that want to make money off of marijuana are big investors in trying to promote this amendment.
Well, the TV commercials are saying that the money that's made off of legalizing marijuana for recreational use will be used for law enforcement and for veterans. And that may be true to some extent, but it sounded like to me, every time I've watched and listened to the TV ads, that's all it's going to be used for. But I think there's many uses that it could go to, right?
Yeah, no, I think this is just going to be, it's going to be general tax revenue money that goes into the system, and of course, a lot of what the state does is
It's
supporting
long,
police, is supporting veterans, is supporting healthcare and all those kind of things. But
I'd say that's a little bit misleading.
it also wouldn't have to be used for that.
Yeah, they don't have to. So, I mean, all those people, if they're only voting it for that reason, they may be disappointed. So,
yeah, and if you look down back, like the past several years, probably even a couple of decades, there's always some kind of very benevolent hook. Anytime there's a tax increase. I remember one year it was pre-K education, and for a tax increase issue that they wanted for another reason. And so there's a lot of that's the ballot candy, where you attempt to encourage people to vote for something because of this very benevolent purpose. But I think people should always be wary of that. They should look at the underlying effect of the policy change and not just the benevolent purpose. If we have a benevolent purpose that we want to take care of, we should take care of that on its own merits and not do something that might be bad policy in one way just because we care about that benevolent issue.
Yeah, very good.
I like that ballot candy. I don't know if everybody's heard that before.
In the spirit of Halloween here, in ballot candy.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, so that's probably the biggest amendment issue there is, and the most controversy and the most money being spent on it.
I
always find it interesting. So there's basically not very many signs out there saying to vote no. There's not a lot of money being raised to vote no. There's a lot of money that's got signs out saying vote yes. Like I said, a lot of that money's coming from other states. That always worries me a little bit about. So let's talk real quick about, do you think that as a senator this next year, are we ever going to reform the way that we do the referendums for people, that they can just put things on the ballot and they're not really safe and thought out well enough yet? It might be a good idea, but it's just a poor way they wrote it.
Yeah, so there is a interest in doing some initiative petition reform, some ballot initiative reform. What that ultimately ends up looking like is unclear because there is a desire to maintain ballot access for the public. The problem, as you have pointed out, is that it's not usually the public that is accessing the ballot. It is like a very niche special interest that is well funded, and they use this process to access the ballot, and the actual citizens of the state of Missouri are indifferent to the issue that's being put on the ballot. And so, maybe a reform could look something like requiring more signatures, requiring them from a more diverse part of the state, just putting some hurdles in place to make sure that anything that gets on the ballot is actually something that the people of Missouri want to put on the ballot, and not just a narrow group of interests. I do think there's appetite to do something about that. There was a bill last year that didn't make it all the way through the process. And I think there'll probably be another attempt this year because, as you pointed out, there have been a lot of ballot issues over the past few years that have primarily been driven by the narrow or out-of-state interests, and they've had a big impact on the laws here in Missouri.
Yeah, I think the recent example was Clean Missouri.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just say clean Missouri, you want a clean Missouri? Well, everybody wants clean Missouri. And then you kind of start looking, and I think a lot of people may have got duped a little bit the first time around. So we came up with a counter called Cleaner Missouri. Yeah. And it passed. And so now that's what we're operating on. I think it's a much better concept.
Yeah, and for the folks that don't remember that, it was essentially gerrymandering. They wanted to put gerrymandering in the Constitution. They were going to create a super demographer that would have control over how the maps in the state are drawn. Currently, we have a bipartisan commission that draws the maps with judicial oversight. This would have invested all that power into one person, and that person would have been appointed by the state auditor, which coincidentally, I'm sure, was a Democrat at the time.
Yeah.
And of course, that was getting ready to go into the redistricting process that we just came out of. So it would have had a huge impact on the state of Missouri and the districts in this just recently closed redistricting cycle had it stayed in effect. But the ballot candy that they used was getting rid of lobbyist gifts. Or reducing them to $5. And I know you and we voted for $5 lobbyist gifts when we were in the legislature together a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And then the cleaner Missouri version that we voted for took the gifts ban to zero. There are now no lobbyist gifts in Missouri.
You can't even get a free cup of coffee.
No, which is a good change. But it's sad that we had to have this kind of existential crisis on redistricting in order to accomplish that.
Yeah, I remember when we first got that $5. Okay, so could we have a cup of coffee? Could we get a refill or just a half a cup of coffee and one bagel, but just a half a bagel? Can we get something to put on the bagel, a spread? I mean, what can we do to come up with our $5? And everybody was confused about it.
Yeah, no, the easiest way to do it is just not to take any gifts at
and
all.
That's what we finally did. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, we just go take it down to zero and everybody pays for their own. Yeah. And I'm okay with that. So,
and not that it caused any, I don't think it caused anyone to, I don't think it was corrupt, but I think it looked bad and the public didn't like it. And we should adhere to the wishes of the people on something like that.
Sure. Mark, are we getting ready? Okay, we're ready to do. I tell you what, that went by fast. So now everyone that's watching, don't turn us off, because right now we're going to go over our very important sponsors, our 3 sponsors, looking for 2 more sponsors. But and then as soon as we get back, we're going to be talking about voting in general in this country. What do you need to know and look at about voting? So the first sponsor is Brad Pistow, Certified Fiduciary Financial Planner, located right in Ozark, Missouri on Farmer Road. Trinity Insurance Financial Services. I tell you what, he is the real deal.
Yes,
and
he is.
He's been on our show several times, and he was our first sponsor. He's very generous, been helping lots and lots of people. Don has mentioned things when we've had him on our show, and he's the first one to buy a bunch of toys for kids and all the things that he's done to help us. And so, honestly, you need to call 417-581-9222. 417-581-9222. And if you're located and you live in Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma, he's licensed. The other 47 states, don't worry, because he has friends and associates, because he goes all around the country speaking, and he knows people in all the states in this country that can help you just like he does. Safe Money Matters is his first book. If you call that number, Lisa or Hunter will answer the phone. They'll send you that book, Safe Money Matters, #1 Amazon investment savings retirement plan book. And then he wrote a book and came out in December, same time your book came out, in December of last year, and it's called Bulletproof. So it's a continuation of making sure that your money stays safe. Right now with the stock market up and down, and mostly down, you haven't lost a penny. Right now, my wife and I have not lost one penny. We don't have to worry about the stock market. And we're making between 6 and 8% every day the stock market's going down. We're making money, and that maybe it's not 18% or 20% like the stock market has done, but we're consistently making money and not losing a penny. I really feel sorry for the retirees right now. If they're retiring right now, they've lost a big part of their retirement funding. So good guy to call. His son Hunter is also doing Medicare. So right now is a great time for all the people first enrolling in Medicare, or you already have a Medicare plan. Call that 581-9222 and ask for Hunter. And they also sell stocks and securities and bonds and things like that. So just a great sponsor. Our second sponsor is Youngblood Motor Group. They're located at 3525 South Campbell, 3525 South Campbell. And their telephone number is 417-882-3838, 417-882-3838. And they specialize in Nissan and Kias. But I'm telling you, they came, John Whittaker and John Youngblood. Those two guys are just absolute fantastic people for our communities around the Springfield area. They are very generous with their money. They've helped us with different fundraising that Don and I have been involved in. And they have tremendous selection, usually about 250 used cars on one side of South Campbell and the new cars on the other side of South Campbell, right parallel to each other, right across the street. And we highly recommend those guys. I bought my last 2 cars from them, and I'll be buying my next car from them because I just love their service. I love the kind of cars that they have. And so we highly recommend them. Then our third sponsor, and that's called The Firm. The Firm, Louis Michael works for he's the actual sponsor, but he works for The Firm. He's a realtor for The Firm real estate company in Ozark, Missouri. And this company's been around for a long time. And so Louis Michael, his phone number is 417-988-1086. 417-988-1086. When you call Louis, he can be out on farmland, he can be anywhere, but he'll return your call. If he's with a client, he'll return your call promptly. He does that every time. He's a co-host for us when one of us is gone. So he's our sub, and he does a great job. He's a Elvis impersonator, but he really sounds like Elvis. And so if you buy a home from Louis Michael, from The Firm, you will get a block party where you can meet all your neighbors, new neighbors. He's going to do an Elvis block party for you. Who else? Nobody else is going to be able to do that. I don't think there's any other realtor in Southwest Missouri that's going to sing like that. That's a professional. He travels all over the country singing, and so he's in Vegas. He's everywhere and performing. And I'm telling you what, when he's selling and working in Ozark, Missouri, he does a tremendous job. So The Firm, and that's the Parham family. So that's Sonia and Rick Wells. Unfortunately, Rick is not with us today, but it's Shirley Parham and Stan is not with us today, but we've got Sheila and the whole family. And then did I give a shout out about Amy and Mark Aker giving the land using? So I did that. So I want to make sure, because Mark and Amy Aker are instrumental in Christian County, allowing Light the Way to have that concert every summer in Christian County from now on.
Well, that's just a huge thing off of their plate of where they have to have an event with all of these people. If that's already taken care of, then the Lord's really paving the way for Light the Way.
Oh man, I tell you what, you heard so much last night. You know, God was there last night, and it was so cool. The other thing about Louis Michael is he has a nonprofit organization called Choosing to Live. And it's a real strong point for him. Louis, at one time, he's been on our show, told us his life story about he almost committed suicide. He was so close. And God spoke to him and saved his life. And now he wants to save everyone else's life. That everyone has important things to do on this earth.
And that message is so important right now. Going into the holidays is such a big thing with suicide awareness, and Louis, that's why he's so vocal about what he went through, because he just wants there to be that hope that, today can be a really bad day, but tomorrow is a new day.
That's right. And, Louis still today, from time to time, because we're all friends on Facebook, he'll have a bad day. He has a time when it's not as good as other days, but you learn how to cope. And to be a strong Christian and have a relationship with your Lord is a way to cope. And so he'll be on, and he'll be telling his story again, because all 3 of our sponsors will be on before the end of the year, and we'll get an update about their business and what they're doing for 23 and stuff like that. But that's our 3 sponsors, just great sponsors. And did you notice that we've got family-owned Christian sponsors that have been in business a long time, and we're very picky about our sponsors. So that's really good. Okay, well now, thanks for listening to that. Now we're going to go back into, I think, a very interesting next 20 minutes about talking about voting. It is a privilege. It's an honor. A lot of people have died for us to be able to have the freedom that we have in this country to be able to vote. And then sadly enough, we have a lot of people that have never voted in their life, and they still don't vote today. But I'm urging everyone to understand the importance of voting. It's your time to express your feelings and to make some choices that is important to you and your family. So voting is very important. So, Don, I know that you're a strong Christian person, and so I'm going to kind of start it out with one of the things I think is extremely important about voting or doing anything in life, and that's praying. Don't you think praying is important before you vote? And do you believe that? And I know you're very active in your church because your family has a church that they pastor and stuff like that. Your dad and your brother and your sisters and things like that. So, don't we want everyone to pray and for discernment?
Well, absolutely. You want discernment and you want that wisdom from the Lord on what you should do. But I think it also is an alignment of your daily values. So the Lord knows where your heart is marinating at, the values that you stand for, and just, praying for clarity, because some of these things get confusing. And I think that's where the Lord wants us to seek out information and education and then pray that we know what to do, because these are big decisions that impact our lives and our state. And
well, yeah, I think so too. So, I mean, every morning I start off by praying. Every evening I end the day by praying. And one of the things that we want people, when we're just now talking about voting in any state, you need to be educated. Make sure that you are informed. Read as much as you can. Go to when they have debates. Go to debates or watch on TV or listen on the radio. Educate yourself to all the amendments that Representative Curtis Trent was talking to you about, because you don't want to just go there and be trying to guess. Do I vote yes? Do I vote no? I mean, you want to have a good discernment about how you're voting. And I think that is so important. And some of the things that I always think about now as I've gotten older and been involved in politics for a while is and I know we've heard this before, but I just want to say it again, are we better off each time that we have an election, whether it be every 2 years, every 4 years, whatever, are we better off today than we were on the last election? I think that's a good barometer of where we are. How do we feel? And I think that is important. Are we better off? Are we safer? Do we have enough money? With inflation, and I'll just tell you, I gave Jan and I the trunk and treat down on the square at Ozark on Monday night. We gave out over 1,400 pieces of candy. Well, inflation is supposed to be around 10%. Did you know that Halloween candy, between 20 and 38% different types of candy? Oh my gosh, try to give chocolate candy away, because I used to always love to give chocolate candy, the little chocolate candy bars, all kinds, the Kit Kats, the Butterfingers, the Milky Ways, the Snickers. I love that stuff. You know why? Because I eat it myself. So the ones I don't give away, I eat myself. Well, you used to price that stuff now, and that was like 30% higher than it was last year. So I don't know where that 10% comes in, because it's cost so much more. But early voting, Curtis, you have mail-in early voting, and then you have in-person early voting. But one of the things I thought about, because I was thinking about in one of the states where we have a gentleman that's running and he's had a stroke, and unfortunately that's just a negative thing for anybody. No one would want that to happen to anyone, but it has impaired him. And, when he had his debate, they had one debate, and then maybe that might have swayed some people's votes. But if you've already voted too early, then you can't take your vote back, can you?
No, once you've cast your vote, that's it. It's over as far as your vote is concerned. And so, yes, if you have the proverbial October surprise, or new information comes to light, even just as a natural course of a debate or something like that, if you've already voted, then you don't get to change your mind on that.
Well, and I like in Missouri, the fact that in Christian County, where I live, there's only one place to do early voting, and that's at the courthouse. And I watch everybody all day long going in and out. And I thank them for voting anytime I can actually talk to them. And I like to see that in-person voting. I realize that some people have to use mail-in voting. You know, we've got people that are handicapped and shut in, people that can't navigate. They're not mobile, and it's really hard for them. And we want everyone to vote. We absolutely want everyone to vote. But I don't know. The earlier the voting, do you think there's a chance that we might have some problems?
Oh, certainly, and I think there's been an effort to, at least in Missouri, and I think probably maybe increasingly around the country, to narrow that window in which you can vote absentee or vote early. The drop boxes and some of the other things that have been abused in other states are going away. Missouri does not have a drop box system, and so I think that there's been a lot of awareness raised about the importance of voting, but also voting integrity, voting security, and some of these. If you have the actual election day spread out over 6 weeks, that creates opportunities to have more challenges with election security. And so, even from that standpoint, I think the move is to narrow the ability to vote too early.
Right.
And to encourage people to vote in person whenever possible, to have photo identification and other things that make voting more secure.
And we have that now in the state of Missouri.
Yes.
And I think that's a good thing, because you almost have to have a photo ID for almost anything that you do.
They won't hardly let you rent a movie, although I don't know that anybody rents movies that way anymore. But back when you had to go to Blockbuster, they didn't let you walk out of there without showing
you have to have
ID.
A photo ID to go to the bank. At the doctor's office the other day, I don't know. It's the first time I've seen that, but I actually had to show them a picture ID. I didn't just go through my last 4 digits of a social security number or my birth date or something like that. So I'm not against photo ID. We want to make sure everybody can get one and make sure that everyone can get to vote. We're not trying to restrict voting and things like that. Let's switch back to churches. So Don, does your church, do you guys spend any time at all where you try to urge people to get out and vote, your members to vote?
Yeah, not to sway the vote, but
no,
yes,
but just to vote, the importance of voting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you tell people to remind them? So this Sunday, I'm hoping that businesses, churches, everybody, families, reminds everybody to vote. But there's nothing wrong with a church to tell people to tell their members, now make sure that you go vote. They're not going to tell you who to vote for, but to tell you to vote, because I think that's an important role of a church, to tell its members to go vote. So what does it mean when I've heard this phrase a lot, vote the Bible? Vote the Bible. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think that goes back, for me, it's the values.
Vote the values. So you would want to choose someone, a candidate that had values more like you.
Well, and for me, it's someone that's not going to push their values on me. I have my own values. So I want to be able to live my life according to the Bible and what God wants for me. And I don't want anybody infringing on that. So that's freedom to me, to be able to worship and believe and act out accordingly.
Yeah, very good. Very good. And then Curtis, let's go back to relationships. I know that you've been in the state house long enough now, and I know the type of person you are, you're readily available. You're out there everywhere. I mean, people can find you. They can't say that you're hiding, and you're going to respond. And so you're a state representative that responds to your district, but you've also been active in other areas, helping other people and things like that. So isn't it so important for all these voters, before and after a vote, to have a relationship with their state rep or their state senator?
Oh, certainly. And I think most people pay more attention to federal politics, but federal politics are really, in all reality, they're quite distant. And DC is quite sclerotic. I mean, it is not a place that changes quickly or changes in the right direction. Usually, it feels like, and really in the your state legislature has much more impact on your day-to-day life, has much more impact on what's going on in our local communities in our state, and are much more accessible. I can be as available as I am because there's not a huge number of people that are out there looking to get a hold of you, at least compared to like your congressman or your federal senator. And because you have a smaller district as part of that. And so, you have a smaller district, there's fewer people. And so you're closer to them and more accessible to them. And so I always tell folks, like whether it's your state legislature, whether it's your city council, your school board, whoever it is, you can find most of these people and talk to them and have an actual conversation with them and learn about their worldview and how they approach things. And they care about what you're going to tell them. It means much more to me to have someone from my district or from my community talk to me about their views on a policy or their views or their worldview philosophically on how our government should operate, because I know that is an actual person that has actual feelings and actually has a stake in the community and cares. And I think that's true of most of your state legislators, most of your city and school board officials and folks like that. So yes, go to events where they're going to be at, find their phone number and talk to them. And I think you'll be surprised at how accessible your state and local officials are.
Yeah, very good. And you hit on the next spot, because the next topic was make sure that you understand the importance of local elections. And we're going to start out, we'll say school board. I was on the school board for 2 terms. How about city type things? You could be on a city council. You could run for mayor. You could run for all kinds of things on city level, county level. You and I did state rep. Now you're doing state senator. I did Eastern commissioner. Now I'm doing presiding commissioner. All those type of things. Those are the most important things that you can do.
And the impact you can have is huge. The turnout, like the number of people who vote in those elections is so small. Like you're voting for 10 people if you show up to vote for county commissioner or school board or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so extremely important. And I encourage everyone out there, all 50 states, you can run for an office. You don't have to just be a voter. Very important to be a voter. But there's a lot of men and women out there that could really be qualified to do the job. And don't just complain about something and go vote and go run for an office. Pick something, start out small, work your way up, see how you like it, because you'll be a very important person. You'll be a difference maker. Curtis, you're a difference maker. And Don, what do you always say?
You're being the change.
Being the change. That's what he's doing. And you can do it too. People out there in the audience today can do that. Not just leave it up to just a few people to run for office. You can do that. So basically, I would just say, to kind of sum it up, the theme is vote, vote, and vote. Vote one time, but vote. Everybody needs to go out and vote, okay? And this election that we call midterm before the general election in 2 more years is extremely important, because it helps us set the tone of what our country is going to be about. And so I think that is extremely important. Anything else, Don, that we need to cover today before we sign off?
No, we appreciate you having on the show today.
So Curtis, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, they can find me at my website, curtisdtrent.com. And there's a way to contact me there. They can go on social media, Curtis Trent MO on Facebook and Twitter.
Well, I tell you what, before we sign off, I know Matt's saying that, Mark's saying that we're almost done, but the League of Women Voters in almost every city has these voter guides. They're free. And I noticed that because people have asked me, how do I know how to vote for a judge? Because I don't know the judges. I've not been before them. I don't know if they're doing a good job or not. There is a page in there. How do I know how to vote for judges? So they've already helped me answer my question. But there's a place where you can learn more at yourmissourijudges.org. yourmissourijudges.org, and that is a way to find out all about the judges, if there's been any complaints on them or anything like that.
And a lot of judge candidates will show up at forums and events and things, and are accessible too. So don't hesitate to reach out to your judge if they're up for re-election, and just talk to them about how they feel, what their judicial philosophy is.
All right.
So,
okay. Well, it's been a great show, Curtis. We really appreciate it. Don, good job as always. And I tell you what, we'll be back next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Everyone have a great rest of the week. It's going to be beautiful weather.
Miss the values, the old time family. They dream this land stays free under God, not tyranny. That's what it means to really dream. 1, 2, 3. Can I get a hoorah from a patriot like me? Can I get an amen? Do I hear a hallelujah? Can I get a hoorah from a patriot like me?